Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in. This time last year, the run-up to Easter holidays was anything but normal. Australia's property market was in a state of desperate frenzy. Auction clearance rates, along with the eastern seaboard, were at record levels. Every single capital city was being flooded with new listings as vendors jumped at the chance to sell in a booming market. But even still, the supply of properties for sale was no match for the insatiable level of buyer demand. FOMO was pushing prices to unthinkable heights. Agents were so busy that they were booking auctions back to back on Saturdays and Sundays just to cope with the level of demand from buyers and sellers, with some reporting that they were booked out for auctions until July. A run of public holidays and cooler winter months were on the horizon, but instead of slowing down, the property market was preparing itself for a second spring to cope with the extraordinary momentum sweeping the nation's property markets. The lead up to Easter 2022 is looking very different. Australia's capital city property markets are no longer moving in the same direction. Sydney and Melbourne have peaked and are now softening. Others like Brisbane and Adelaide are still rising. But will they keep rising into what are the traditionally quieter months of the year? And is Perth showing signs of slowing now that its borders are down? Sydney's new property listings are rising again, leading into the Easter break. But the difference between this year and last year is that buyers are taking their time and contemplating decisions. They're not willing to make compromise like they were last year. Sydney recorded its lowest Saturday preliminary clearance rate so far this year, last weekend with 66%, and the weakest since the closed markets in December 18, 2021. 40% of properties were sold prior to auction and 11% were passed in. The median auction price last weekend for a house was $1.8 million. This weekend is the busiest weekend so far this year, with a Super Saturday of more than 1,100 auctions. After this coming weekend, the auction activity slows down for Easter. Melbourne saw the strongest rise in new property listings out of any capital city last week, jumping by 12%. Last weekend's preliminary clearance rate was a strong 67%, with 11% of properties withdrawn and 22% sold prior. The median auction price was $1.125 million for a house and $730,000 for a unit. Melbourne is also having the busiest weekend this coming weekend, with almost 1,500 properties to go under the hammer. Brisbane this time last year's property market was in a frenzy. The number of new property listings was increasing prior to Easter, but the competition from buyers was so fierce it was putting some homeowners off listing at all. But it's been a tumultuous start for 2022 with Brisbane as a city. New listings declined by 8% last week, which means there are fewer properties to buy and so more competition. Adelaide was a little slower to boom than the other capital cities like Sydney and Melbourne. However, today it's one of the best performing markets in the nation. This time last year, the number of new property listings was rising into Easter, but this year the supply of new stock for sale is tight. New listings fell by 20% last week, and competition for property is still strong. Perth new property listings declined slightly last week, but that came off the back of a flood of new listings into the market over the past 3 weeks, so domain data shows. Perth has gained momentum since the borders have reopened. For buyers, there's some who are afraid of overpaying, but they're also afraid of the rising interest rates and want to lock in a 2-year fixed rate mortgage now before rates go up. Gareth Aid, head economist at Commonwealth Bank of Australia, is forecasting price growth to reduce in 2022 with a possible 7% growth, but reaching the peak in the second half of the year. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.